Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Bienvenue à cette.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to, where are we, in April? No, we're in May already, May 16th. I should know because there were a couple of birthdays recently in May. Our 51st wedding anniversary, the poor woman. So, that said, the city of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. And dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I have no announcements this evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I see that everybody is present. Welcome. Welcome back to those who have been taking advantage of the summer so far. Thank you. It's always better to participate in person, isn't it, than virtually? But of course, we do what we can. Conflicts of interest? No declarations of conflict of interest? Let's move on then to the adoption of the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne. On the question? No questions. All those in favor of the adoption of the agenda will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The agenda is adopted as presented. Now, presentations, inquiries, and petitions. Item 8.1, inquiries by council members to the Kodiak Regional RCMP. And as always, we have Inspector Chantal Farah with us this evening. Chantal Farah, I'm sorry. And she's here with us, as she is almost every meeting. Once in a while, though, her boss gives her the day off. So, and he comes to meet with us. But anyhow, welcome here this evening. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. I do have a few activities to talk to you about. Last weekend, the members of the community police, in partnership with the 529 garage here, were at the market in Dieppe. We had brought some stickers from the 529 garage to the market to encourage people to use the app and register their bikes. It's really a means to prevent theft, and it'll help us to find their bikes if in the unfortunate event that your bike is stolen. So if you haven't done it yet, please, we do encourage you to download Garage 529. This week is the National Week of the Police from May 12th to 18th. We're celebrating Police Week. Our community police this week is going to be giving presentations. There are going to be drawing contests for youth in the schools. As you know, this type of activity allows us to have discussions with the youth on the role of the police officer, because we are one profession amongst others, and we're here to support the community and to help keep people safe. Sometimes this is the only positive contact they've ever had with the police, so it's important for us to do this. It also allows the police officers to discuss with newcomers what is community police and what does it mean, because the police services are not the same everywhere in the world. We're also going to give presentations on crime prevention and fraud and safety online. And now, in June 2023, our investigators of the General Investigation Unit had been sent to a theft at a gas station in Moncton, and it had been revealed that the theft had been planned by an employee and a member of his family. The person was charged and accused, and sentenced to a police term. In April, the other suspect was ordered to pay restitution and also received a sentence. Now, the crime reduction unit, I'm just going to talk about one case. On April 10th, the unit executed a search warrant on Argyle Street, and they seized methamphetamine, cocaine, a hydromorphone, and a firearm. And as usual, usually drug dealing and firearms go hand in hand quite often. That's why it's such a great risk for the community. Now, there was Matthew David Harley Robertson of 47 years old and a 41-year-old woman, both from Moncton, were arrested. These two individuals had also been under investigation by us in last November. Our police officers had executed a search warrant in a residence where these two same individuals were, and they had been arrested and faced charges. Now, these two both have appeared in court, and they are facing new charges now, a number of them, and both will be one returned to court last week, and the other one will be returning to court in 2 weeks. We were happy to see that they had been remanded. Meanwhile, now the provincial traffic enforcement unit was in the area 2 weeks ago in partnership with our Kodiak patrollers in Dieppe. During the operation, they issued 118 traffic violations, and 3 vehicles were towed because they weren't safe enough to stay on the road. And that wraps up my report this evening. If you have any questions, thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. I prepared some notes here because I don't want to forget anything. I'd like to talk about the sound, the noise problem that we have by these modified vehicles. We've been bringing this issue up for the last few years, especially during the summer period. So I also want to point out that it's not just something that happens in the downtown area, but we hear complaints from different neighborhoods as well, residential neighborhoods. We know that with the steps that have been taken in the past, that the RCMP needs a tool in order to be able to assess the noise level and to determine if it is a nuisance, if it is excessive noise. But this, of course, we have to define what excessive noise means. Now, with what was done at the time, well, we determined that it had to be come under the Motor Vehicle Act, and which had to be amended. So it's really something that comes under the provincial government jurisdiction. Now, in 2022, Dieppe adopted a resolution to ask for an amendment to the Motor Vehicle Act. And at that time, the mayor had written a letter in 2022 to Mr. Fleming, the Minister of Transportation at the time. And the letter was received, but following that, the minister was changed. It became Chris Austin, who also confirmed that he had received the letter, and they said that they would review it. Unfortunately, since then, we still have not received a response from the government, even after numerous follow-up attempts. So my question is this: seeing as we know that we need to give you the necessary tools, and we have to amend the act in order to allow you to use these tools to determine what excessive noise is, in order to assist our citizens who have to put up with these noises in the neighborhoods and downtown. My question is, at the RCMP, do you have a platform or any type of meetings with the government of New Brunswick in order to make recommendations such as this one, when a municipality like ours wants to push an issue like this forward, something that should be considered? Is there something that the RCMP can do to help us? Well, in terms of a platform or a group, I can assure you that the RCMP work works very closely with other chiefs of police from across the province. There is an association of chiefs of police of New Brunswick, and Ms. Hill, our commander, is a member of this association. She meets with all of the chiefs of police on a regular basis, and together they discuss what the important issues, the problems they have in their own neighborhoods, in their own cities, in their own police forces. So I think it would probably be a good idea for the municipalities which are impacted to talk to their police force so that the chiefs of police are well aware of it so that they can bring it up in their forum. We appreciate that it's up to the province to amend the acts, but it's a lot of work. So as a police force, when all of the chiefs of police discuss together, they'll look at the issues where it impacts most, and then they have to come to a consensus before they approach the province to make sure that there is consensus amongst all chiefs of police. So that would be the mechanism. And then we meet with the province on a regular basis, but it's really to make sure that all of the chiefs of police are aligned, to make sure that their municipality is aware of it, and to explain what's important. So it would be advantageous for us to get the support of the cities and the other municipalities of the province. Yes, and the chiefs, police chiefs. Yes, yes, I would say so. Yeah, and probably we should write to the superintendent to put pressure on them as well, and because the message has to go through there as well. Yes, so through our group, we can do that together. Corinne sits on the leaders committee. We can bring it to Ms. Hill, no problem there. But we make sure that it really has to come from different sides, from different aspects, and make sure that we take into consideration all of the issues. And that's why in 2022, we had launched a pilot project at the Kodiak Regional Police with the patrollers and with the community police. We had used a different section of the Motor Vehicle Act because when we hear excessive noise, if we feel that there is a problem with the mufflers, if it's been modified or removed, we can order the owner or the driver to bring their vehicle to an authorized garage that we had established a partnership with for an inspection. We can use those sections. When we use those sections, 95% of the cases, we found out that the mufflers had been modified or broken off somehow, and the owner or the person who brought in the vehicle for the inspection did not pass their inspection. So they had to return their vehicle to good working order in order to get their safety sticker. Now, it was a community approach because it wasn't a question of giving a fine. It was giving the driver the possibility to bring their vehicle to the garage and bring their vehicle back up to standard. But if there are some mufflers that are well installed and it's not their fault that the noise it causes noise, well, that would be a challenge. But this was really for vehicles that had been modified. And another thing I'd like to bring, because it's a big challenge for our citizens, is that yes, we can call the police station, but it's difficult to try and get the number of the plate. So especially when it's in the evening, I'm not saying that this never happens during the daytime, but usually it's at night. Yes, and of course, for us, I mean, if somebody tells us, oh, I heard a car go by on Amiro Street 5 minutes ago, well, that doesn't really help us. But if somebody could say, I'm aware if that it's so and so from, and that they are the owner of this vehicle of this color, and the plate number is this. And if we see a pattern in their circulation, and we've already had that, the residents that in Dieppe that would give us that level of detail, and then we ourselves, we could go and see if we could find the person to follow them according to the pattern. And then we could give them a citation to go for an inspection. But of course, it's difficult for the citizen because they have to see them, they have to identify the car, they have to take the plate number, and that's not easy. So, but for us, it's easier, it's better than just reporting one single occurrence. Well, yeah, it's probably not the last time we're going to talk about this, I'm sure. But my message is help us help you, because we're all aware of this now. We're aware of the reality. We know what could make a difference. And I think that today we could make a difference. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Farah, it's unfortunate that today we're still talking about this because the complaints have already started coming in. Last year, we had met with a group of residents, and we had been very clear on the whole aspect of noise, modified cars, modified mufflers. And of course, what you're saying today is that you need consensus throughout the province from all of the chiefs of police, but that's going to take even more time before we can convince all of the chiefs of police to meet them. It's not easy, first of all, and then to address the province, to put pressure on them to change the law. Well, meanwhile, our residents, they're the ones who have to put up with it. I know you're talking about Amiro Street. Last year, I received a call, but just at the corner of Amiro and what's that street just beside the Irving? Chartersville. I mean, there's 3 apartment buildings there, and people have their windows open all night, and then so when these guys come back, with the gas revving, they want to, they make a lot of noise as they're going around the corner, and when we receive these complaints, all we can say is, oh, well, I'm really sorry, but the police wasn't there at that time to notice it. So even if you give me your complaint and I call the police station, they don't have time to see who did this, who's making the noise and where they're at. So it's not easy. And I understand, I agree. You don't always have officers that are everywhere all night long either. But my for me, I find it unfortunate that we're still talking about this. And I get the impression that we're going to be talking about it for some time yet all summer. So get ready. Yes, and I did a little research, and it is a problem in other provinces as well. We're not the only one to have a problem with this. So it's great that we talk about it again, and we're going to look at to see what we can do and for us to make sure that we can encourage change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further councillors wanting to speak, thank you for being here. You are always welcome here. Questions from the public? Oh, we skipped over 8.2. Yes, that's right. There's another presentation. Sorry. All right, I'm trying to go too quickly, and I get all caught up here. All right, so 8.2 presentation, fire protection services fees. Just a second. Hello, councillors. So in 2020, we presented a master plan for the fire department where we had developed a regulation for service fees. And in November 2022, Firemark had come to speak to council in a closed meeting. And then we looked at developing an agreement with the provider. In March 2024, we conducted, we consulted the industry. We talked to the city's insurers, with the Insurance Bureau of Canada, and regional municipalities, other regional municipalities. And so the Municipalities Act allows us to recover firefighting costs. So in the contract that we're presenting tonight, in the agreement, we required a French language requirement. The provider must be able to communicate with residents in French. And so today we're going to have a presentation done by Mr. Chris Carrier, and the recommendation would be to proceed and to sign the agreement. And this will be followed by another motion for a bylaw that will be implemented in the coming weeks. And it will be for a 3-year duration till May 2028 with an evaluation. And so Mr. Chris Carrier is here with us today. He's the Director of National Accounts for Firemarks. He's been doing that since 2011, and he also has experience as a councillor and mayor of Collingwood in Ontario. He did that for 13 years. And so Firemark has clients that includes many different types of organizations and First Nations, different sizes of communities. So I will let Mr. Carrier speak to you, and then we'll be available to answer questions at the end. Thank you. Chris.
That's not a good thing these days with the Blue Jays, but
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, senior staff, and citizens of Dieppe. It's a pleasure to be in your wonderful city again. Thank you for the nice weather. It's nicer than Ontario when I left this morning. I'm going to go through this very quickly. I know your time is precious this evening. Firemark began its operations in 2011. We started with 0 clients. As indicated, we have 1/3 of Ontario's departments as clients: large urban, small urban, rural, local service boards, and 1 First Nations community. We also have expanded our program into BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and in your lovely province, both Fredericton and St. John are clients. Under the additional coverages section in almost all property policies across Canada, you will see something called fire department service charges. The amounts vary, and they vary because there's 193 different insurance companies operating in Canada. In 2011, when I started with Firemark, there were 234, so there's been significant change in the industry since then. And our policy wording database indicates the coverages vary from $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, and this is one where it indicates it's $25,000 worth of coverage. My home in Collingwood, Ontario is actually insured with Aviva, and it's actually unlimited coverage for fire department expense service charges. And this is a typical small mutual insurance carrier, no pun intended. And they have $1,000 worth of coverage. Under our legal definition, which your staff have certainly reviewed, indemnification technology, and this is for me to emphasize to anybody who's listening this evening, is that we are not invoicing the policyholder or the homeowner and asking them to pay a bill and be reimbursed by their insurance company. No way. What we do is that we interact with the insurance adjuster who's handling the property claim for that property. So we copy them with or send them a copy of an invoice showing the cost of the fire service in response up to the limits of the coverage that policyholder has within their policy. So there is no cost to your policyholder or your resident. You require 2 bylaws. You need a cost recovery bylaw, and your staff have been reviewing that, and I believe there'll be one presented to you hopefully in the near future. And the reason for that is that the insurance contract, you are not a signator to that contract. However, under the Insurance Act in every jurisdiction across this country, under Section 4, Statutory Condition 8, you are allowed to make a claim against that policy for the funds that you're entitled to receive, and that is the fire department service charges. The policyholder is not entitled to receive those funds, only the fire service is. If the fire service doesn't get it, then the insurance company is eligible to keep it. The second bylaw is just to enter into a contract with us so that we can then identify to 193 different insurance companies that we do have the privilege of working on your behalf. I've covered this a bit, but here is Allstate Elite Homeowner Wording Policy, where they will say that they'll pay up to $5,000 if there's a requirement to pay. So depending on the verbiage in the policy. It could say legal requirement, it could say local ordinance, requirement to pay, but almost all policies across the country have that. I will say in 12 years, we have seen one or two that don't exactly have that specific requirement, but however, almost all of them do. Are the municipal bylaws enforceable? The Insurance Bureau of Canada has been interviewed on this topic of whether these bylaws are enforceable. And yes, they are. They've been quoted in public record as stating that they are both legal and enforceable. The process, I've reviewed this with Chief Cormier extensively. Essentially what we would like is a copy of the standard incident report, scene release form, and a summary form that we call the initial report form. Most of this work is already being done by your staff, so we're not really asking for anything else. On a biannual basis, we do ask for a summary of your various costs within the fire service because we are the ones who are generating all the paperwork. After an incident, we open a file, we reach out to the adjuster for the other side. I'm just going to use cooperators as an example. We'll reach out to the regional adjuster for cooperators and ask if so-and-so has made a claim against their policy for an incident that occurred on such and such a date. If the answer is yes, we piggyback on that claims process. If it's a small incident and the person is not making, or the policyholder is not making a claim, we close the file and return it to the chief. The average recovery is 13 to 14 weeks. The shortest recovery has been 8 days, and the longest recovery has been 42 months. The 42 months was a non-residential fire. However, there was a basket of coverages that we weighted through that process because that basket of coverages included $250,000 worth of fire department. So it included $250,000 of basket coverages, of which the fire department expenses were one of those coverages. So our program is designed not to harm the policyholder in any way, not to take any funds that they're entitled to receive. So we waited out that process and we were able to return over $34,000 in fire department expenses to our client. Your Local Governance Act changed in 2018, yay. It gave you natural persons powers. We received that in Ontario in 2005. So essentially the act before that was rather prescriptive. You're under the thumb of the provincial government, and I say that with respect to the provincial government. However, it was thou shalt do this, and if you didn't say you could do it, you weren't really allowed to do it. Now natural persons power is the test of reasonableness. So is it reasonable for local government to pass legislation, local legislation, to unlock the coverage in a contract, in an insurance contract, which says if you don't have this local legislation, you can't have the money. So of course, it's reasonable for you to take these steps. We get asked this question all the time at all municipal conferences. Rates are going to go up if you implement this program. No, they're not. It's very much like your municipal budget process. You have a lot of pressure within your budget for based upon items that are receiving pressure from inflation. Fire department coverages are a static or a fixed cost. So to use cooperators as an example again, in 2014, the fire department service charge was $5,000. In 2024, it's $5,000. In 2030, I'm going to take a guess, it's going to be $5,000. So the policyholder has paid for this coverage. And I liken it to when was the last time you went to the grocery store, bought a loaf of bread, and you weren't allowed to leave with the local loaf of bread because it was just there for them to make extra money. It might be a model that Lovelaw's like, but don't want to go there. It's a situation the policyholders paid for the coverage, you're entitled to receive it. Our program is designed to request and demand actually of the industry to honor the coverage for which they've charged their policyholder. In their own IBC fact book, and I can give you 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all the way through. In their fact book, it says, along with covering claim costs, premiums are calculated to cover taxes, operating expenses, and expected profits. They have forecasted paying out on this. There is no way that our program is going to cause an increase to premium rates, period. And we stand by that claim. No deductible applies, so there's no harm to the policyholder. And it doesn't reduce the amount of payment they're entitled to receive. So if the policyholder is entitled to receive $500,000, they have $5,000 in fire department service charges, they still receive $500,000, and the municipality's fire service is entitled to receive $5,000. And there are some of Mark's colleagues across the country who are happy to receive a check. As a former mayor, I'm excited dropping off checks to clients. It's always fun. You don't have to make an appointment. You can just show up and somebody will come out of a meeting to get a check. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right. Question de la part des membres du conseil. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions from councillors?
Madame Jeannet.
Councillor Jeannet. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much for this presentation. It was very informative. Thank you for coming here in Dieppe. Ma question va plutôt viser
My question will be, first of all, to the city. For people who are visual, who like to receive information visually, we received the presentation as a PowerPoint presentation in English. Could we require that it be sent in French or bilingually? We'll make sure we get it in French, yes. For the next time, time we have a presentation from outside the province, yes, please. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? No further questions?
I guess you're good to go.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maintenant, question du public.
Now we're at questions from the public. Please come to the mic and give us your name for the cause. Yes, good evening, ladies, gentlemen, councillors. 3 years ago, and my name is, oh yes, I'm sorry, my name, Mr. Bouchard. I've been in Dieppe for 5 years, and 3 years ago, we met with council, Councillor Brideau, and other councillors, organized by Councillor José, Councillor Turgeon-Roy, I'm sorry. We had also met the Inspector Follette at the time in order to talk about noise, cars on downtown on Paul Street and on Champlain. This evening, Ms. Farah, I was very disappointed to hear your report. After 3 years, the mayor was asking how old I was earlier. I'm 78, and by the time this is taken care of, I might not be here anymore, unfortunately. But there are a number of people in the downtown who are frustrated. And when you look at other areas of New Brunswick where people are frustrated as well, in Fredericton, Edmundston, the RCMP is in almost these municipalities over this territory. I don't know why we would need consensus of the chiefs of police of New Brunswick. If we calculate the numbers of the population in these centers, why do we have to wait so long before we address the province? There's also the Association of Municipalities. Perhaps that might be a better way to proceed, because if we continue to name all of the chiefs of police, well, I will keep on being worried. Perhaps we could ask you to take another route, because in any case, we're being told that It's already been talked about, and Minister Fleming at the time and Minister Austin today have received a request, at least from Dieppe. There must be a way to push this forward and not wait another 10 years before anything happens. We've also started thinking that we're going to have to think outside of the box and shake up the box. And that's why we're here this evening. I have Andrea here with me, who can talk of other things that we have in mind in order to start shaking things up, because the problem goes beyond Dieppe. And when I look at Dieppe, Moncton, you want greater density in the downtown core, but I know people in my apartment building who left the downtown because of these cars. So if we want to increase the density of the population downtown, it's something that we're going to have to look at, because people are talking about it. They say, don't go to the downtown area because these cars are driving around until 3 a.m. These little souped up cars, whatever word you want to use to describe them. And yes, the RCMP had a campaign last year. You stopped a number of them, you sent them to inspection, and you said that it was somewhat successful. But out of 118 tickets issued, this time there was not one indicates that you've made an effort for, I mean, that there was not one that was for being illegal. So next time your special group comes to Moncton, please ask, they can stop 118 of them just for the noise in one single evening. So thank you. I've already taken up too much of your time. Thank you. Please continue your great work. Thank you. You're too kind. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Andrea. Good evening, everyone. Your Worship, Council. My name is Andrea Arsenault. I'm also a resident on Paul Street. And over the last 2 or 3 weeks, at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm trying to figure out what I can do that isn't necessarily legal or but so what can I do? But it's I can't sleep, so I spend some time on the computer doing research to see, you know, how long it lasts, when it started. I have newspaper articles. I talked to Councillor Godbout. She talked to me about the legal aspect. We had a coffee together, and then we talked about it. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, I complained to the RCMP because one of the things she said is call the RCMP at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not just noise, it's a whole orchestra. It's trying to figure out who can make the most noise, who can make the most music. And one RCMP officer called me back. They were very nice. We spent a half hour on the phone. They explained what the law was, what they can do, what they cannot do, their challenges, the lack of resources, because people, cars that are noisy, homeless, what do you choose? Then somebody suggested the Francophone Municipality Association of New Brunswick. Ms. Godbout said, contact them. So I did. And 2 days later, I got a call back from the president. I don't remember their name. Yvon Godin. Yes, Yvon Godin. And once again, we spent a half hour talking on the phone, and he also explained that they had the file and they were working on it. And so that's the language I received. That's the messages. Everybody says we're working on it. My question, and rather than calling the poor RCMP 3 times every weekend or every evening, I mean, it's a waste of time for me, and it's frustrating for me because of their staff shortage, they can't do anything. By the time the police get there, they can't. The noisemakers are gone. So, what can we, as the the receivers of this music at 3 o'clock in the morning? What can we do to help you, to help different organizations, those who are responsible for this kind of issue? What can we do as citizens of the city of Dieppe, which is trying to increase its population? And I looked at your documents on development. Well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I looked at all sorts of things to try and find out, to find where we can get information, how can we address this? So what can we do in order to get this needle moving? Because it's frustrating. What can we do in order to help you to be able to implement? I mean, the bylaws are there, the laws are there, the services are law, but what's missing? Why doesn't it move? That's my question. That's a good question. I'm not going to try and answer because there are too many elements that cause frustration. But the most frustrating is that there is no reaction from the province, and they are the legislators here. And it's not because I'm trying to protect my friends at the RCMP, but I think that it starts with the province of New Brunswick that has practically, essentially ignored us. And I can tell you that we're going to go through the Union of Municipalities. We're meeting with the Francophone Association of Municipalities tomorrow, I believe, no, Wednesday night, this week. And once again, to see if we can move this issue forward. But we need a group of communities in order to force the government to change the rules that would then allow the municipalities to act. So it's up to the communities to put pressure on the province. And when you talk about communities, who are you talking about? Well, us, the municipalities, the city of Dieppe, and all of the other communities members of the AFMNB, the Association of Francophone Municipalities. And we also need the association and the support of the Association of Municipalities of New Brunswick, which has 200 and some odd members. Well, 70 entities, and the other ones are LSDs, but that's where the power is. And they're going to have elections soon, which doesn't mean they're going to act, but together at least we should make it an issue to be raised during the election campaign. At least I dare hope that the 2 or 3 parties, 4 parties, they're up to 4 parties, I think. I think the NDP found somebody here. So the 4 parties, I hope they can agree on this and ask for request a call to action to get the municipal laws changed. And this will become a burden for us, of course. But in today's situation, we're at the point where, I mean, I live on Chartersville, as you know, and I hear them starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. You hear them in the middle of the night in your corner of the city, but then they move down to our place. I mean, they're going home at that point, and full speed. So yes, it's frustrating. I mean, I've already slept through my night, so it doesn't bother me quite as much, but we hear them continually from my house. And Chartersville is a great speedway. It's a straight road, and there are children walking, and it's and so thank you. We tend to forget these things sometimes because of all of the other issues that we are working on. But personally, will do something. I commit to doing something, and I hope having support of my council to bring about the changes necessary within 12 or 18 months, because we know that there will be an election period, and I think it'll be a good time to play that hand, that political hand, which I don't like doing, but I have two questions and one last comment then. So are you working with Riverview and Moncton on this? Well, not yet. There have been, we've approached them, but some time ago, I think at least 18 months ago. Your Worship, we did work with the two provincial associations and the two municipal associations, the Francophone Association of Municipalities of New Brunswick and the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick. So both associations have adopted resolutions towards new regulations, and they sent the correspondence to Minister Austin. So this was done within both associations, and we're going to continue to work with the both associations. Nobody's received a response. No, nobody's received a response. They're completely ignoring us. And everybody's getting ready for the election. So, well, our friends at the province are, and so that's where it's going to stay, with the province. And so we need to have them give us the tools that we need. Well, again, we suffer in the same way. We hear them all day, all night. Well, I just have a comment, just something to think about. The numbers of these cars around city, there might be 50 of them. There's 50 that have as their they've got us as hostages, really, because out of a population of what, 33,000? Well, maybe it's just me, but I apologize for my frustration, but, and this is my last question, what can we do to help move the needle here? Can we continue to call the RCMP every night? Will that give anything more, or will it just frustrate them as well as us? Well, I think it might be a little bit of frustration on both sides, because in the same way, everybody has to agree on the tools that are going to be used. If we're going to use noise meters, yeah, to determine like it's the same difficulty, somewhat the same with Harley. And well, where it's too noisy. Well, what's too noisy? I mean, you have to define that. So it's going to be the challenge, I think. But if there's a time to do it, this is it. Well, thank you for your attention to this matter, and thank you for listening. Now, will my comments raise other comments from other councillors? Councillor Brideau, thank you, Your Worship. And I just want to add to what you said, and something Ms. Farah mentioned. And thank you, Andrea and Mr. Bouchard, for your comments. Ms. Farah had mentioned earlier that we need consensus amongst the chiefs of police from all communities where the problem exists. And for us, with the help of the Francophone Association and the Union of Municipalities, I think it would be a good force to get the province to move and to make them to force them to amend the act. We can wait another 5 or 10 years before they act, but we really have to move on to action. We have to act. I went to some of those meetings 3 years ago with Mr. Bouchard. I listened to the voice of the residents, and not only people from Paul Street and Sunset, where there's another apartment building, but other people from the community as well. I think it's time that we wake somebody up in Fredericton and that we insist we insist on getting answers to our questions.
Je vois pas aucune autre demande.
I don't see any other.
Est-ce que tu voudrais t'exprimer, Madame Farah? Je vois que ton...
Do you have something to add, Ms. Farah? No, I just, well, I understand the residents. I'm a resident of Dieppe on Ami Rose Street, so I understand, and I think you all have good plans to try and encourage changes, and on personally and on the behalf of Superintendent de Jolette, we're going to continue to bring this to the table with our command, and this is along with the chiefs of police. This is how we're going to work. I mean, we have brought about other changes in this way, so I'll make sure that I bring it back up, that to make sure that it's on their agenda, whereas you act on other lines of action. And if you do see cars that are grouped or parked, if you're up, call us, because it's easier than cars that are actually on the road driving. So if they're parked and they're revving their engines, if you're up, take the time to call us and we'll be there. Of Friday night in the strip mall on Paul Street? The interpreter apologizes, but we cannot hear the comment. So when I will go, I will take notes, and I'll guarantee that they'll be there on Friday. Thank you, and thank you to everybody for the discussion. And I think the staff has heard the message and they're going to support us. And Wednesday night, I will raise the issue again with the Union of Municipalities. No, the AFMNB, the Association of Francophone Municipalities of New Brunswick. Which brings us to no further questions from the public, our vast public here this evening. We'll move on then. The minutes of the previous meeting. Adoption of minutes of the meeting held on April 22nd. Moved by Councillor of moved by Councillor Lantaine. No, Councillor Le Boutier. I'm sorry, I'm all mixed up. And seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying yes, opposed nay. The minutes of the meeting of April 22nd are carried as presented. Now, administration, motions. Motions, memorandums, and nominations. 11.1.1, ratification of directives. The ratification of different directives adopted at closed meetings. Mr. Melanson. Yes, so every now and then we make these directors public, and so these were directives that were discussed in private, and sometimes there are discussions that have been presented at the Committee on Policies and Strategy, which meets on the third Monday of the month, and this evening. So we have 6 directives to present. The first one is for land purchase on Bourke Street reconstruction project. This is to complete the engineering, the work on Melanson Road and Bourke Street, the reconstruction. And you know that we have a proposal to extend Dieppe Boulevard We have a directive from Council to submit a funding application under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program for the extension of Canada for $42,000. The third directive, $42 million. The third one would be a land exchange for the new street between Dieppe Boulevard and Gulf Street, that little street that connects the two streets. So between the Gulf Street and Dieppe Boulevard, there were two land exchanges as identified here. One that is PID 704-18645 exchanged with PID 7039-1875. And the project is finished. The road connection is there. It works very well. The fourth directive, we approached Council to authorize the new position in the 2024 budget. It would be for a reservations clerk within the Community Development Department. The position was filled in 2023. We had a budget surplus at the time that allowed us to do this because it's a position that had already been accepted through this authorization. And the fifth directive is that we advised Circular Materials Atlantic that we would not enter into a service agreement with them. The province of New Brunswick signed an agreement with SMA and B, and now we have discussions underway on the membership of this program by November 2024. There will be a presentation to Council on the update following these discussions. And the last directive that we are making public is a signing authority for a development agreement with the Housing Corporation, NBHC. We've already shared that we had an agreement with the province to build a second 10-unit building. They're almost finished. We should go out to RFP to tender soon for the building of two 10-unit buildings on Gauvin Street, and we should have a second building on Melanson, which is close to Central Street. So those are the 6 directives we are presenting this evening. I'm not sure it's necessary to read them all out individually. No, just the resolution. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council ratify the directives adopted at closed meetings of Council concerning the following topics. 1, land purchase, Bourke Road reconstruction project adopted 28th of September 2020. 2, funding application, Dieppe Boulevard extension adopted May 24, 2022. 3, land exchange, construction, new street between Dieppe Boulevard and Gulf Street adopted June 13, 2022. 4, new position, Community Development Department adopted 14th of November 2023. Recycling program, collection of packaging and paper products adopted December 11, 2023. And 6, signing authority development agreement, NBHC, adopted March 11, 2024. And I so move it, Your Worship. It's been moved by Councillor Godbout. I'm sorry, Godbout. Councillor Godbout, I'm having a bad night so far. And seconded by Councillor Leboutier. On the question. All those in favor will signify by saying yes. Opposed, nay. It's carried as presented. Now, the fire services. Mr. Melanson, we received a presentation from Mr. Carrier on Firemark Incorporated, and this is to give the authority to the municipal signing officers to sign the agency contract between the City of Dieppe and Firemark Inc. Moved by Councillor Lantaigne. Thank you, Your Worship. So Council authorized the municipal signing officers to sign the agency contract between the City of Dieppe and Firemark Inc. for the recovery of costs of various services and activities related to the municipality's fire department. And I so move it. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor Jeannet on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried as presented. 11.3, Planning and Development. 11.3.1, a tender award consulting services, urban growth strategy, and secondary plan. Following a tender that was issued by the staff, and there were 3 bids received, and it is recommended that Upland Planning and Design Studio is recommended at the cost of $212,560.25 HS2 included, which is, so this would enter into the budget as adopted for 2024, and this will allow us to develop a strategy with the development of Dieppe Boulevard that will help us in the densification. It allow the population to make comments and participate in consultations, open houses, and everything else that will be done to make sure that everybody has access. So this is to proceed with this initiative and to award the contract. Thank you. Who would like to read it? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the tender entitled AO 24-SCU, Urban Planning Consulting Services, Urban Growth Strategy and Secondary Plan to Upland Planning and Design Studio at the cost of $212,560.25, HST included, pursuant to its proposal dated April 12, 2024, and authorize this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-52-12-2838, General Operating Budget, Sustainable Development Plan. And I so move it, Your Worship. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the question. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. Just a point of clarification. When we look at the different criteria to assess the different bidders, and I went to see the website to see who were the entities, at which point in the evaluation do we look at the language?
Excusez-moi, Monsieur.
Sorry, Mr. Girard. So in the document that we made available for all firms, we indicated that one of the deliverables, both the public consultations and the documents themselves, must be done in French. So some firms submitted bids in partnership. So one would take care of the facilitation, or the writing of the document, and other firms had city planners who were Francophone on their team, and they would do the presentations of the. Well, in this case, is this an English-speaking firm, or are they able to communicate with us in French? They have a bilingual team, and they have a Francophone communications expert as well. So that person is the one who will be facilitating the discussions with the public, and the deliverables will be done in French. And the bid as well was done in French. So we're comfortable that they'll be able to communicate in French. All right. Well, I have no opposition, but my only comment is that when you do those assessments, I encourage you to make sure that as much as possible, that these firms give a lot of value to their experts being able to communicate with our experts in French, especially when we're talking about, strategic planning. I think that's it's very valuable, and so that communication has to be very clear. So thank you for your clarification. I have no objections, but that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to make sure that our senior management were able to communicate with these people in French, and I think we have to give a lot of weight to that in the evaluation process. All right. Any further questions? Councillor Gaudette, please. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question. You had 3 bids, and I know that you went by, there was a weighting system, but was the price, what was the percentage there? Well, price was a criteria, yes. we gave a certain weighting to price. Yes, we did. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. 11.3.2, Mr. Melanson. All right, this is a PAC recommendation. This is a request to extend and locate Benjamin Street. So there's the recommendation is to accept the PAC's recommendation and to approve the amending tentative plan, the subdivision plan. All right, who would like to read that resolution? Councillor Gaudet, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation relating to the acceptance of the Dieppe Industrial Park subdivision amending tentative plan, which provides for the extension and location of Benjamin Street. I so move. Moved by Councillor Gaudet, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question. No, seeing no questions. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. 11.4.1, tender award, Benjamin Street extension. Mr. Melanson. All right, this will be a public street, and now we can give we can award a contract to build that street. So if we had 5 bidders, and it's recommended to offer the bid to Ville and Inch Construction at the cost of $1,032,716.47, and that $135,000 be also given to Englobe Corp, which is the firm that provides engineering services for the project. So this is a staff recommendation, and we want to, yes, so who would like to read that resolution? Councillor Thibodeau, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the tender for the project entitled Benjamin Street Extension to the lowest bidder, Ville and Inch Construction Limited, at the cost of $1,032,716.47 plus HST, authorizing Englobe Corp to undertake engineering services related to the said project at the cost of $135,000 plus HST, and further authorize these expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7668, General Capital Budget, Benjamin Street Extension, and account number 4-3-90-58-7668, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Benjamin Street Extension. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the question. There's maybe a detail that I'd like to add. In terms of the Extension Dieppe is making is contributing $5,000, and the balance will be covered by the city of Dieppe, and I think it's important to mention that. So Expansion Dieppe, rather, is making a contribution. All right, Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. All right, now we move to municipal bylaws. There's nothing in that under that heading. Notice of motions. 13.1. Mr. Melanson. This is simply to see if a councillor wishes to give notice so that at our next meeting, we need a motioner and a seconder. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Mr. Simard. So this is a proposal or a motion so that we can consider these motions at the next meeting. All right, so in the first case, bylaw S3, Councillor Lanting, please. Do I read I have to read the motion? Okay, or the notice rather. So I give motion that bylaw S3 2024 entitled bylaw concerning fire protection services fees will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. I so move. Moved by Councillor Lanting, seconded by, oh, we don't need a seconder, right. Those in favor? No, we don't need that either. Okay. All right. This is a notice of motion, right? All right, 13.2, notice of motion. Do you want to continue, Councillor Lanting? Okay, yes. I give notice that bylaw C-35 2024 entitled Bylaw of the City of Dieppe respecting vegetative growth will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. I so move. All right, we don't need a seconder. So this is simply a notice of motion. Would you like to consider with 13.3? Sorry, 13.3. Right. I give notice that bylaw C-33 or 34 2024 entitled Bylaw of the City of Dieppe concerning streets, sidewalks, and trails will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second meeting. I so move. Thank you. And would you do the last one, please, for us? 13.4. Notice of motion, bylaw 78-5, 13-2024. I give notice that bylaw 78-5, 13-2024 entitled bylaw amending bylaw 78-5 of the municipality of Dieppe respecting the water and sewage systems will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. I so move. Thank you very much. All right, now item 14, inquiries and announcements by members of council. We'll see if you still have your voice. If you still have a voice, Mr. Lanting or Councillor Lanting, we'll start with you. Nothing for me this evening. So have a nice evening. All right, you too. Councillor Godbout, nothing for me either. Councillor Turgeon-Roy, nothing for me either. Thank you. We're on a streak. I have one single thing to say. I want to congratulate Camille Freinet, who this weekend won a silver medal at a triathlon competition in Paris. So I think it's a great success for hers. Yes, that's a great way to see Paris too. All right. This is an athlete from the region who continues to progress. That brings me to Councillor Brideau. Nothing for me, Your Worship. Have a nice evening. Councillor Jeannet, I want to wish everyone a great spring. We're starting to get some nice temperatures. We will be able to get out on the trails. So I wish you a good week. All right, thank you. Councillor Leboutier, thank you. Nothing for me either this evening. Councillor Godette, thank you. Same for me, nothing to say. All right, well, that said, I don't think I have anything to say either. So have a nice evening, everyone, and good night.